is most probably incorrect. So just double check in your dot environment that you have a proper database URL which is accessible and working. And of course, make sure it's a MySQL. If it's not, if you're using something else, then just make sure to change the provider in the Prisma schema to use that different provider. Great job so far. So now we are finally ready to create our API route to create our first draft course. So one thing I want to do is I want to go inside of the app folder, dashboard, routes, teacher, and create page right here. And I just want to modify my API route. So it's right now it's going to /API/course. Well, I want to modify it to go to /courses. So I made a typo here. So go to /API/courses. And I just noticed that we still have this test folder. So if you want to, you can remove it. We're not going to work with it. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's close everything here. And just as we did in the first part of the tutorial where I taught you how to create the routes, well, now we're going to create a new folder inside of the app folder called API. And inside, we're going to go ahead and create another folder called courses, like this. And inside, we're going to create route.ts. So this is going to be equivalent to /API/courses. Let's go ahead and let's write export asynchronous function post, which takes the request, which is a type of request, and let's open a try and catch block with the error inside. And one thing I'm going to do in all of my API routes is a console log, and then I'm going to write in square brackets courses like this, and then I'm going to pass in the error. So you don't have to do this, but it will help you a lot in development. If you see random errors popping up in your terminal, then you're going to know that something is wrong with the courses API route right here. And then we're going to actually just return new next response, which you can import from next/server, and go ahead and just say internal error like this, and return a status of 500 to the client, so it knows something is wrong. Now let's go ahead and let's extract the user ID using a clerk, using its auth function like this. And then let's go ahead and let's extract the title, which we get from our form. And we can get that using await request.json like this. Now let's go ahead and check if there is no user ID. In that case, return new next response unauthorized like this, and pass in the status of 401 like this. Great. Now let's attempt to create a course. So we're gonna go ahead and write const course to be await db, and make sure you import db from @/libdb. So it's that little util that we created just recently. So make sure you have this import here. Great. And now let's write course await db.course.create like this, and pass in the data. And we're going to need a user ID, which is required, and we're going to need a title like this. So let's take a look at our schema Prisma a bit, so it's easier what we are looking at. As you can see, user ID is required and title is required, but all the other fields are optional, right? So that's why this is working. Great. And all we have to do now is write return next response.json course, right? And this is going to immediately be caught inside of our dashboard routes teacher create page.tsx on submit function, because we're going to get this response, then we're going to get the data, and we're going to get the ID. So that's why we are returning the course, right? So response.data is not part of our API route. We are immediately returning a course, but response data is here because we are using Axios, right? So when we do Axios.post, we have to get response, we have to get its data, and then we get the course ID, which is represented as ID in here. So the moment we create a new course, we're going to redirect to the page where we can add the course description, image, and stuff like that. And while we are here, we can also add toast.success like this, course created like this, so we know it's going well. Now let's go ahead and let's attempt to try this now that we have that route. So make sure you saved your API file, And what I expect to happen is a success message right here in the network tab and a 404 page inside of here. So let's click continue here, and looks like that is not true. Let's see why. Let's see what happened exactly. So it still says not found. Let's see. Oh, I think that's because I have to, yes, because I'm not running my application. So perhaps you're not running it as well. So just go inside of your terminal and make sure you do npm run dev and then refresh your application. So I'm just gonna prepare my stuff again here. My terminal is ready, and I'm gonna go ahead and select the network tab right here. And let's write test, continue. It's loading, and there we go. Course created, and we have a 404 page. Perfect. So you might be wondering, well, how can I see a database inside of a table, right? How can I see all of my items and entities? Well, Prisma has a really cool thing. So I'm opening a new terminal here, and I'm gonna write npx Prisma Studio like this. And you can see that that is opened on localhost 5555. And in here, you can see all of the models which we defined in our schema. And as you can see, I have one course here. So when I open this, there we go. I have an ID, I have a user ID, I have a title of test, and everything else here is empty and is published is false. Great. You can see I have a relation with the category. Well, I don't, but there is a potential relation with the category here. And you can see I have 0 attachments here. So there we go. I have a created at and updated at files. Perfect. So what I'm going to quickly do is just fix this 404 error right here. So if you want, you can keep your Prisma Studio running. And let's go ahead inside of the teacher folder, inside of the create folder, inside of the courses folder here, and create a new folder here called course ID like this. So this is a specific convention in Next.js where we write dynamic folder names, right? So this is not going to be hard-coded as course ID in the URL. Instead, it's actually going to be a value which we can then extract in our page, and then we're going to know which course do we load using the ID. So inside this folder, create page.tsx, make sure this folder is inside of brackets, and let's go ahead and let's write course ID page like this, and a div saying course ID page like this. And there we go. You can see I no longer have my 404 error. So let's go back inside of the courses now. So you can just click in this sidebar here, click on new course, write test again, click continue, and there we go. Success message, and look at my URL. It's using the newly created ID right here. And let me quickly show you and explain how this course ID now works. So what you can do here, once you have this course ID in a folder, every server component inside of this folder can now access that through params, right? So I'm going to write params here, and I'm going to give it a type of params, which is an object, which is going to have a course ID, which is a type of string. And then I can write course ID to be params.courseID like this. And there we go. Look at this now. Now it says exactly which course ID is loaded in here. And let's look at our Prisma Studio. I'm going to refresh this course page. As you can see, that exact ID is in here. So it's correct, right? And I can manually copy the ID from our old one and change my URL here, since we don't have a table for now. And there we go. Now it's loading that course. So that's why we did that dynamic folder, because we're going to use this information in this server component to actually fetch the course and all of its information, right? Because we are going to have forms to update the course, but we also need to provide the user all the existing information about this course, like its title, its description, its image, and all the other stuff, right? And this is the way we're going to fetch that using the course ID. So if this is not working for you, few things to check here. Make sure your course ID is not misspelled here. Make sure it's not misspelled here. And most importantly, make sure it matches the folder name, and make sure your folder has brackets, right? So make sure there are no misspells here. That's the only reason it should not work, right? And you can even see, you can manually change the URL to, I don't know, 123. And there we go. Now it says course ID 123. And if we attempt to actually do this in our finished app, we're going to throw an error, right? Because there is no course to be found using this ID. Great. So great job so far. What we're going to do next is actually start working on our form. So let's continue with the development of individual course page. So let's go back inside of our course ID page where we rendered the params course ID. And what I want to do here is I want to fetch the course. So let's go ahead and do that. So make sure you mark this course ID page as an asynchronous function like this. And while we are here, let's already import the DB from as/lib DB like this. And then inside we can write const course to be await db.course.find unique like this, where course ID is equal to course ID. And it's actually params.courseID like this. But one more thing I want to change is that we also check that the person who is trying to edit this course is also the creator of this course. And we know who the creator is by checking the user ID. So that's why we added the user ID to the model course. So that's how we're going to keep track of which user created which course. So let's go ahead and let's extract the user ID from the out function, which I've imported from @clerk_next.js like this. So make sure you have both of this here. And before we attempt to fetch the course, first let's check if we have or don't have a user ID. So if we don't have a user ID for any reason, let's just return a redirect, which we can import from next/navigation. So make sure you add that as well. And we're gonna redirect back to the root page like this. And same thing is true if we don't find a course. So let's go ahead and write if there is no course. In that case, let's go ahead and return redirect to a /root page. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's create an array of our required fields. So we're going to start by developing some heading, which is going to say you are missing 2 out of 6 required fields, right? Or something like that. So in order to do that, we need to create an array of the required fields. So let's write const required fields like this, which is going to be an array. And inside, let's put course.title, course.description, course.image URL, course.price, and course.category ID like this. Great, so make sure you have this array. And now let's go ahead and let's add a constant total fields to be required fields.length like that. Const completed fields are going to be required fields.filter, and you can just write boolean, right, .length. So what this is going to do is this is going to get the number of all of the required fields, and this is going to get a number of all of these fields which don't equal to false. So if description doesn't exist, this is going to return a null, and when we filter that to the boolean, it's not going to add to this completed length field. And I just think I have a typo here, completed. Yeah, so it's completed fields like this. Great. And now that we have that, let's go ahead and write const completion text like that, open backticks and open parentheses, and go ahead and write completed fields / total fields. So this is gonna say like 2 out of 6, right? Or in our case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Later on, we're gonna add another required field. Perfect. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's go back inside of our teacher mode here, and you can just click on new course, just write something and click continue, and you're gonna go back here. If you enter something invalid in the URL, you're gonna get redirected back because we're not gonna be able to fetch an existing course. So just make sure you are on this page with the course ID. So let's go ahead now and let's go inside of this div here. Let's give it a class name of p-6 like this. We can now remove this text here. Instead, let's open a new div with a class name of flex items-center and justify-between like this. And inside, open another div with a class name of flex-col and gap-y-2. Now let's add an h1 element, course setup like this, and give this h1 element a class name of text-2xl and font-medium like this. Great. And now below this h1 element, open a span and write complete all fields, and then render the completion text. So this constant right here. So you can see that now it says complete all fields 1 out of 5. That's because we already have the title, right? We entered that when we created the course. That's the one required field for even creating a draft course. Great. And now let's go ahead and give this span a class name. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write text-sm, text-slate-700. Like this, and if you save, then this is what you're gonna see. So we have course setup right here and complete all fields, and we actually don't need this space here, at least visually it just looks a bit bad. So let me just remove the space from this completion text like this. So just a slash in between, no spaces, and when I save, I think that looks just a little bit better. So now let's create our first section, which is going to be for adding the description, the title, the image, and the category, right? So we're going to call that customizing our course. So let's go outside of this div, which wraps our title and our span, but still inside of the p-6 div right here. So I'm going to go right here and go ahead and open a div inside and give it a class name of grid-cols-1. So just make sure you don't misspell it like I did. That one, okay. So on mobile devices, we're not gonna do any grid, right? It's just gonna be one thing below another. But on medium devices, it's gonna be grid-cols-2, like this. So 2 items side by side. Let's give these items a gap of 6, and let's separate this from the title by margin top 16, like that. Now inside, I'm gonna open another div like this, and then just open another div with a class name of flex items-center and gap-x-2. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let's write an h2 element, customize your course, like this, and let's give it a class name of text-xl like this. Great, so you can see how this looks now. One thing I want to do is I want to add a little icon next to the side of this text, customize your course. And we're going to call that icon component icon badge. And we're going to reuse it throughout this tutorial. So let's go ahead and let's create that file now. So I'm going to go and find my global components folder right here where I have my navbar routes. And I'm going to create a new file called icon-badge.tsx. So make sure you create that file. And let's go ahead and let's import Lucid icon from Lucid React. Let's import CVA and type variant props from class variance authority like this, and don't do the same mistake I did, like this, okay? And let's also import cn from s/libutils. So you have this installed because you did chat-cn in it, right? So this is where that class, where this import comes from, and the same is true for Lucid React, just in case you were wondering how do we suddenly have this. Great, and now what we have to do is we're going to use this CVA thing to create different variants for this icon badge, because I want to be able to change its color and I want to be able to change its size. And there are many ways we can do that, but this is a very standardized way of doing it. So first, let's create the variants for the background colors of this icon badge. So let's write const background variants to be CVA. Let's go ahead and let's give it a default class name of rounded-full, flex, items-center, and justify-center, like this. And now let's open an object and let's create variants, like this, and a variant option. So variant, a single, right? So this is multiple and this is just a single variant, and that variant can be a default version, which has a bg-sky 100, or it can be a success version, which has bg-emerald-100, like this. And now let's go ahead and let's give it an icon variant, like that. The default one is going to be text-sky-700, or the success one is going to be text-emerald-700 as well. Great. And now let's add a size variant. So size like this. Default is going to be p-2 like this. And small is going to be p-1 like that. Great. And now outside of variants, let's go ahead and let's write default variants. And let's just write variant to be default and size to be default like this. Great. And now let's go ahead one more time and let's create the icon variant. So actually we don't need this icon variant, I think. Let's go ahead and let's develop further. So we're going to logically see if we need it or not. So I'm also going to separately create the icon variants because I don't think we can actually mix and match it because we're going to use this background variants for two different elements. So let me just clear this up a bit for you. Why am I even doing this? What is this? Maybe you've never even seen this. So let me just quickly jump back into Components UI and take a look at button, for example. So this is what I'm doing. Look at how ShadCN adds variants to the buttons, right? So because of this CVA library, we can add a default value, a destructive value, an outline, secondary, ghost, and link, right? You know, when we give a size to our button and it magically becomes small, or when we give it a variant of destructive and it magically becomes red. Well, I want to reuse that logic and that structure because I think it's a really good standard of doing it rather than just a bunch of template literals, right? So that's what I'm trying to do for this icon badge component inside of here. So just stay along with me and you're soon going to see the result of doing this. So let's separately write one more time const icon variants CVA. And let's give it an empty string for the default class. Let's open an object again and let's write variants. And let's write a single variant like that. Default is going to be tax-sky-700 and success is going to be tax-emerald-700 like this. Let's go ahead and let's write a size. Default is going to be h-8w-8 like this, and SM is going to be h-4 and w-4 like this. Great. And now outside of this variance, just add default variance. For the variant option, we're going to use the default one, and for the size, we're also going to default to this one, right? So default variants tell us, okay, so for this key variant right here, which one of these, so either default or success, should I default to? And that's what we've written here, right? So I can change this to success, and then that's going to be the default one if user doesn't pass any variant as the props, right? So that's what this block of code does. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's create types using these CVA items right here. So write type background variants props, and that's going to be variant props, which we already have imported right here. So variant props, looks like I misspelled it. Variant props like that, and it's going to have a type of background variants, right? Or this constant right here, which we wrote first. Great. So we have that type. Now below that, create a type icon variants props to be variant props like this. Type of icon variants like that. All right. And now let's finally create the interface for this component. So interface icon badge props extends background variant props and comma icon variant props like this, and then open an object. So let me try and expand this. There we go. Or I can even zoom out. So what's important is that this is in one line, right? And then open an object at the end, and inside go ahead and write an icon, which is Lucid React. So Lucid icon, my apologies, like this. Great. So now we have the icon badge props right here. Let's go ahead and let's export const icon badge like this, and let's write icon. Let's immediately remap it to icon, and now we automatically get the variant and we get the size, right? But we still have the errors. So let's give this icon badge props type here Did I do this right? Let me just go ahead and try and continue like this. There we go. Okay, so I just had to open the arrow function, and now you can see that it expects the size, right? And you can see how it can be default or it can be small. And same for variant, it expects it to be default or success. Perfect. And now we can just simply write a div inside with the class name of cn background variants, and go ahead and pass in the variant and the size like this. And inside, open an icon, which is a self-closing tag. So just make sure you remap this icon to icon with the capital letter like that. And same thing here. So just a class name with cn icon variants, and go ahead and pass in the variant and size like this. There we go. So my apologies. We actually do need this icon variant inside, it seems. Or actually, maybe we don't. I know I'm going back and forth, but you're going to see how this looks now in a second. So we're going to decide whether we need it or not. All right, so you can save this file. And now let's go back inside of our page right here where we added the H2 element saying customize your course. And let's add this icon badge from add/components icon badge. So it's the component that we just created and I imported it right here. And go ahead and give it an icon of layout dashboard from Lucid React like this. All right, let's move this to the top, and it seems like I'm having an error here, so let me just refresh to see what's going on. Okay, it says icon badge cannot be used as a component. Let's see why that's happening. So we are importing it from the correct way right here, and we are exporting it, but I forgot to write the return function. So I just randomly start typing divs. Make sure you return this. That's why we have that error. Great. And now there we go. Look at it. Look at this. Now we have this nice little section which has like a little icon for customizing our course. Right here on the side, for example, we're going to have a $sign which is going to say sell your course, right? So we're just going to separate this entire thing into nice little sections here. So let me show you what did we exactly achieve by adding this variance here. So as I said, this is going to be reused throughout the project. So if you find the icon badge here, try and give it a size of small, for example. And now you can see how the icon is small, right? And that's all without us passing custom class names, right? So it's very structured this way. And I can also mix and match that with a variant. So I can go ahead and write success, for example, like this. There we go, and now you can see it's green. So I'm pretty sure that we actually don't need the icon variant because we're not passing it anywhere here. So go back to your background variants and just remove the icon variant. I'm very confident we don't actually need that. If we do, we're gonna go back to this component and add it. But yes, since we're not extracting it in the props, we're not even passing it in any of this background or icon variants, so I'm pretty sure we don't need it. Great. So now that you have that, you can remove this variant and this size and just leave it like this. Great. So now that you have that, we are finally ready to start creating our forms for updating the title and the description, right? So we're going to work by using the patch method to individually update all of these fields. And then how we update each field, that's going to refresh this counter for completing all fields, right? When I add a description, it's going to say 2 out of 5. Right, that's what we're gonna do next. Great job so far. So now let's go ahead and let's create a form which we're gonna use to display the current title of this course and also to enable updating the title. So go ahead and outside of this div, which is encapsulating the icon badge and the H2 element right here, go ahead and add another element called title form like this. And if you save, you're going to get an error because it doesn't exist yet. And I just already want to prepare the props for it. So initial data is going to be the course which we just loaded like this. And I want to keep a separate prop, course ID, just for easier working with. So course.id like this. Technically, we could also get that from initial-data.id, but I just found it easier like this. You can pick and choose what you like. If this is redundant to you, feel free to use the initial-data.id. But I want to have it clear like this. Great, so save this file, and now let's go ahead and let's create this title form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside of this course ID folder, and I'm going to create a new folder underscore components, right? Because these components are only going to be used inside of this folder. And inside, create a title-form.tsx like this. Go ahead and mark this as use client and export const title form like this, and return a div saying title form like that. And now go back to your page.tsx where you added the title form and just import that at the top like this. So /components title form, and I like to separate this from the @signs. And now I have a text saying title form right here. Perfect. So let's go inside of the title form, and first thing I want to do is I want to create an interface that matches the props we are passing. So interface title form props like this. It's gonna have initial data, which is going to be a title and a type of string. And we're going to have the course ID, which is a type of string as well. Now let's go ahead and let's extract these props here. So initial data and course ID, and let's map those props to our newly created title form props like this. And now in your page, you should not have any errors in this title form right here. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's add everything we need for our form. So import all as z from Zod like this. Let's go ahead and import Axios from Axios like that. Let's go ahead and let's import Zod resolver from @hookform/resolvers/Zod like this. And let's also import the use form from React hook form. So use form from React hook form like this. Great. And now while we are here, let's also import all the elements we are going to need to develop the UI. So import from add/components/UI/form. We're going to import the form control, form field, form item, and form message like this. And let's also import the input separately from components UI input. And we can do the same thing for the button, but from UI button like this. Great. And now below our interface, let's go ahead and let's create our form schema. So const form schema is equal to z.object like that. And all it takes is a title, z.string like this, minimum value of 1, and a message title is required like this. Great. And now that we have the form schema, we can go ahead and create the form hook. So let's go ahead and let's write const form to be use form. Let's go ahead and give it a type of z.infer, type of form schema like that. Go ahead and open an object inside of the parentheses here. Let's add the resolver to be Zod resolver, which we imported, and use the form schema inside. And default values are gonna be initial data like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's extract the is submitting and is valid from this form. So const is submitting and is valid from form.formState like this, and const onSubmit function is going to be an asynchronous arrow function which takes in the values, which are a type of z.infer type of form schema inside. So it's an arrow function, nothing special. You've already seen this when we were creating the course. And let's go ahead and just console log the values for now, and we're gonna learn how to work with them later. All right, now let's go inside of this div and let's give this div a class name of margin top 6, border bg-slate-100, rounded-mb, and padding of 4. So you can see how now my form is separated from this text and how it has a little border, rounded corners, and a padding. Great. And now inside of this, let's go ahead and let's open another div with a class name of font-medium, flex, items-center, and justify between like this. So these two elements inside of this div are going to be apart from each other, each on its own end. First one is going to be the course title text like this, and then below that open a button which we imported. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a pencil icon from Lucid React. So just make sure you imported the pencil icon from Lucid React. I'm just gonna move it to the top like this. Let's go ahead and give this pencil icon a class name of h-4, w-4, and margin right 2, like that. And let's give this button a variant of ghost, like that. Great. And let's go ahead and write edit title like this. Great. And now let me just zoom this out just a bit so it looks better there. So this is what it's going to look like. Great. And now what we have to do is we have to add a state for editing or not editing, right? So when we click on this thing, we want to show the input. Otherwise, we just want to show the current title. So in order to do that, we're going to have to use state. So let's add const is editing, set is editing, use state from React with the default value of false. So just make sure you import use state from React. I'm going to move it to the top right here. Great. And now that we have that, we can modify this button even more. So go inside of this button and write is editing and open parenthesis like this and a fragment cancel like this. And in here, question mark is editing like that, and wrap this inside of a fragment as well. Like that. Perfect. And now I want to write a very simple toggle edit function. So let's go just below this and let's just write const toggle edit like this. And all it's going to do is set is editing. It's going to get the current and it's going to set the opposite of the current value like this. And then we're going to use this toggle edit whenever user clicks on this button. So on click, toggle edit like that. And now if all of this is correct, when I click, it should be cancel like this. There we go. Beautiful. Right? So when it's editing, it's going to have an input here and we are able to cancel. Otherwise, it's just going to say the current title. And when we click, it will show an input. Perfect. So as you probably noticed, you could have done this in a different way. Like you could have added a question mark here and you could have put the colon here, right? And remove this, for example. Maybe that's even better. That it actually makes a bit more sense. Yeah, we can do that. So pick and choose. It's both are working, right? But let's be consistent. I kind of like this. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to go outside of this div, which is encapsulating the course title and the button. And I'm going to write, if we're not editing, in that case, open a paragraph, initial data.title like this, and give it a class name of text-small and m2-2 like this. There we go. So you can see that now it says the current title of this course, and when I click on it, it should disappear because instead we're going to render the input, right? But when I cancel, like it's saying us, okay, this is the course title, and you can change it if you want to. Great. So we have that now. And now let's go ahead and below that, and let's write is editing. And so in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to render our form element, which we imported. Let's go ahead and spread the form element inside. Let's open form HTML native element. Let's give it on submit to be form.handle submit and pass in the on submit function like that. And let's give it a class name of space-y-4 and t-4 like this. Great. Now inside, go ahead and open a form field, which is a self-closing tag. Go ahead and give it a control of form.control and go ahead and give it a name of title like this. And now let's open the render function, destructure the field from it immediately and immediately return the form item like this. And inside of the form item, add a form control and now add an input inside, which is a self-closing tag. So the props we're going to give it is disabled if we are submitting. So if we are doing an update request on the API, we're going to disable this input. Let's give it a placeholder, e.g, and let's use backticks, advanced web development, or whatever you want really. And let's pass it, spread in everything in the field like that. Great. So I think this is already enough for us to test this out. So when I click on edit, we now have the edit field like this. Perfect. So that's exactly what I want. So you can keep it in this one so you can see what you're doing. All right. And now what I want you to do is I want you to go outside. Well, actually, before we do that, go outside the form control and just add form message like this. Great. So this is going to display the errors if there are any. And now go outside of this self-closing tag, but still inside of the native HTML form element, and add a div with the class name of flex items-center and gap-x-2 like this. Go ahead and add a button inside, which is just gonna say save like this. Let's give it a disabled prop of is valid or if we are submitting like this, and a type of submit like this. There we go. Great. So we have finished the entire title form component here. So now if you take a look at here, I'm just going to open my console as well. And if I type new title, for example, and click save, there we go. You can see that I have log right here, title, new title. So what I'm going to change now is that it actually fires an API request in this onSubmit function. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. So I'm going to replace this console log with try and catch block. And let's use the toast from react-hot-toast. So toast error, something went wrong like this. So make sure you import the toast from React hot toast. I'm just going to move it to the top like this. All right. And in the try function, we're going to do await axios.patch. So patch is very important here. /API/courses/ individual course ID. We have that as a prop and pass in all the values like that. And then write toast.success like that. Course updated like this. Great. And toggle the edit so it returns back to its initial state, and call router. We don't have the router. Let's get the router. So let's go ahead and let's import use router from next/navigation like this. And let's go ahead and just after this toggle edit, let's add const router to be use router like this. And now we can call router dot refresh. So once we save this, it's going to refresh the server components, fetching the new data from the database. Perfect. So if I try this now, I'm very confident that I should get a 404 error. So I click save, and there we go. We have a patch of 404, and we have something went wrong in our toast right here. That's exactly what we want for now because we don't have the patch function. So in the next part, we're going to create the patch function. Great job. Let's go ahead and let's create the patch function, which is going to update this course title. So I'm going to go ahead inside of my API folder. So go inside of the app folder, API, courses, and create a new folder in brackets, course ID like this. So we can get the course ID from the URL. And inside create a file route.ts like this. Let's export asynchronous function patch, which is going to have a request, which is a type of request. Open a try and catch block in here, and let's log the error. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write course ID and an error like this. And let's return new next response from next server, internal error like this, with a status for the client of 500 like that. Great. Now inside of here, let's go ahead and let's extract the user ID from out, which we get from @clerk/next.js like that. If there is no user ID, in that case, we can return new next response, unauthorized, with a status of 401 like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's extract the course ID from the params, and we did not define the params yet. So the params come from our response object. So let's destructure them immediately. So params is a type of params, which is an object which has course ID, which is a type of string inside. So always make sure that this is in the second parameter, right? So it doesn't matter if you're not even using the request, it needs to go after the request. If you do this, it's not going to work because there is nothing to destructure from the request. my apologies, there are no params to the structure from the request. Great, so now that we have that, let's also get our values. So const values are equal await request.json like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's write const course to be await db. So import that from @/libdb like I did right here. And let me just separate my imports like that. Await db.course.update like that, where ID is equal to params.course ID and user ID is equal to user ID. So you can either write user ID like this or you can use a shorthand. And let's also give it a data object. And in here, I'm just going to spread the values which we passed like that. And after that, just return next response.json course like this. There we go. So let's just see if we used everything. Since I destructured the params here, I actually don't have to use params.course ID. I can just write course ID like this. So when writing these params, it's important that you confirm that this course ID is exactly the same as this folder name course ID. Make sure you didn't misspell in the capitalization or make sure you didn't forget the brackets. All right, and now that we have that, we can actually immediately go ahead and try this. So let me see if I still have my Prisma Studio running. I do. Great. So I'm going to fetch the course that I'm working with right now, and that is this one, DSF. So this one. And let's go ahead and refresh this, and let's try and change this to edited title, and let's click save, and let's see what's going to happen now. So it says course updated, and it says edited title. If I refresh, it's still edited title. And if I refresh my Prisma Studio, this should also say edited title. Great, so we officially made our function working. One thing that I think it's not working, or maybe it is, maybe I just saw wrong. When I click save, this input should be disabled. Let's see if that's true. It looks like it's not. So let's see if I forgot to do that. So let's go back inside of our dashboard, routes, teacher, create course ID components title form. So I want to use this as submitting also in this input. And it looks like I added it. Maybe it just finishes really quick in that case. All right, so that seems to be working. And now let's go ahead and let's create a very similar box like this one, but for updating our description of this course. So in order to do that, we first have to add a Chatcn component called text area. So let's go inside of our terminal. I'm going to shut down the Prisma Studio for now, and I'm actually going to close this second terminal. So I'll just work in this one. I will shut down my app, and I'm going to write npx Chatcn UI at latest add text area like this. And I think I misspelled this, so text area like that. And confirm this installation, and then I'm going to run my app again. And I'm just going to refresh this page. Great. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in this page.tsx where I have the title form, and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it below like this. So now you should have two of these course titles, and let's change this second title form to description form like that. And if we save, we are going to get an error. So we're going to copy the title form inside of the components, and we're going to rename it to description-form like this. And let's go ahead and let's rename the props like this. And let's rename the constant and this props right here. So the way I'm doing is I select title form, and you can see how it also selected this one and this one. But if I start typing, it's not going to change all three at once. But if I press Command D, or if you're on Windows, Control D, you can see that now I have two arrow keys right here because I'm editing both of them. And if I press one more time, now I'm editing all of them. So I can easily change this to description form all at once. Great. Now let's change the initial data to look for description like that. Let's change it here. Let's change this to description is required like that. All right, that seems to be all done. And now let's go all the way to the bottom here, and let's change this to description like that. And let's change this form field to description as well. And now let's go back to our page where we added the description form, and let's actually import it from the /_components. So the same way I did with title form. And now, as you can see, I have a course title here and a course title here, but no description inside. So we have to change this title and we have to change this button right here to say edit description. So let's do that now. I'm gonna go back inside of my description form and find this where it says course title. Just make sure you are in the description form. Don't accidentally change the title form, right? So course title is gonna be course description like that. And this is gonna be edit description like this. There we go. So now it looks better. And now let's go ahead and let's go inside of this is editing thing right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify just a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this class name. And instead, I'm going to open curly brackets and I'm going to import cn from /libutils like this. So just make sure you have this imported. And go ahead and open parentheses, give it the default value of text-small and margin top 2, and then dynamically write if there is no initial data.description, in that case, style this as text-slate-500 and italic like this. And inside of this, we're gonna extend it just a bit. So if there is an initial data.description, then we can render whatever the description says. Otherwise, we can render no description like this. And you can see how that looks now, right? Since I have no description in this project, it says no description here. Perfect. And what we have to do now is we have to modify this to not be an input, but instead to be a text area. So let's go ahead and replace this with text area, which you can import from /components UI text area. So just make sure you have this imported like this, and you can remove the input import like that. And let's go ahead and let's change this placeholder so it makes a bit more sense. So instead of this, it's gonna say e.g. And let's go ahead and open this single fix. This course is about 3 dots like that. And I think this should already be working pretty well. So when I click this, there we go. We have a text area here. And if I try and change this, this is the course description and click save. There we go. Course has been updated and now I have the description right here. And if I refresh, it's still here, meaning that it is saved. Great job so far. So now we can go ahead and copy these elements and modify them as we need for other fields. So now let's go ahead and let's create a little box similar to our description and title, but for editing the image of the course. So in order to do that, we're going to use upload thing. So head to uploadthing.com and go ahead and find the sign in button, and you can sign in using GitHub. So as you can see, I already have a couple of platforms inside. So just go ahead and find a new app here. So click create a new app like this and give your app a name. So in my case, it's going to be LMS, and go ahead and click create app like this. Great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on the getting started right here. You have a description of what upload thing is. You can see how it works underneath, and you can see how it manages file hosting. So everything that you're interested in, you can find right here. So the reason I like upload thing is because of this right here, where it basically says that we authorize users on our server, right? So we don't post to uploadthing.com like we would using Cloudinary, or, well, Cloudinary is an amazing tool, right? But sometimes we need a little more flexibility with our upload service. So this way we are creating our entire upload service, right? So even if it takes a bit longer to implement than Cloudinary, for example, it gives us a much bigger set of tools to work with. For example, we can customize the auth middleware on every request for upload, right? And that's something that's very useful for us when building our own custom app. So let's go ahead and let's click on the getting started right here. And first thing I want to do is I want to install these packages. So go ahead and copy this right here, and let's go inside of our terminal. Like this. I will shut down my app and I'm going to write all of these tools here. So this is what it looks like in one line. npm install upload thing at upload thing /react and react-dropzone like that. And go ahead and press enter and wait for these packages to install. Great. So after that is done, let's take a look at what we need to do next. So as you can see, it says that we have to add the upload thing secret right here. So let's go ahead and let's prepare this right here. So I'm going to go inside of my environment variables. So I'm going to close everything. I will find my .environment file. And after the database URL, I'm going to add upload thing secret like this, right? So we're going to fetch it now. So just make sure you prepare this upload thing secret. And let's go ahead and let's go and click on the dashboard right here. And go ahead and find your project. For mine is LMS, and go ahead in this sidebar and find the API keys like this. And you can go ahead and just copy this entire thing. And well, you can actually replace this like that. There we go. Upload thing secret and upload thing app ID. Great. So now we can go back inside of the documentation here. So we just did step 2, which was adding the environment variables. What we have to do now is we have to set up in your Next.js application, and we are using the app router. So let's use the app router way of doing it. So the first thing you have to do is we have to create a core like this. So we're going to do that inside of app API upload thing core.ts. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go inside of my app folder here. I'm going to go inside of the app folder, API folder, my apologies. I'm going to create a new folder called upload thing like that. And let's go ahead and let's create a new file inside called core.ts like that. And inside, you can just copy this entire code, right? So you can just click copy here. And let's go ahead and let's paste it like this. There we go. So as you can see, we have to modify this auth function here and actually make it use clerk, right? So this is what I was talking about, right? We have our own file router, and in here we can define, as it says, as many file routes as we like, each with a unique route slug and each with a unique configuration. Like, for example, they put an image here with a max file size, but we can also do max file count, right? If we want to limit the number of files that can be uploaded at once. And not only that, we're also going to get type safe components against this file router. So it's actually extremely useful. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time I've seen someone build a library like this. So that's why I like it that much. So let's go ahead now. And let's modify this a bit to match our use case. So we're going to have a couple of routes here. And what I want to do first is I just want to clear this entire thing inside of the file router. So let me go ahead and remove this like that. And I'm going to remove the comments as well, just so we can focus on exactly what we need here. So let's go inside of our file router. And first thing we need is course image like this. That's going to be a function which takes in the image like that. Max file size is going to be 4 megabytes. 4 megabytes like this. Max file count is going to be 1 like that. And let's go ahead and write a middleware here. And let's go ahead and let's just write a function auth like that. And now let's go ahead. So ignore this error for now. We're going to fix that in a second. We also have to add on upload complete. And in my case, it's just going to be an empty arrow function like this. So now let's resolve this auth thing. So instead of auth, it's actually going to be called handle auth like that. It's not going to take in anything in the props. Instead, it's going to destructure the user ID from auth from clerk Next.js like this. And then we're going to say, if there is no user ID, in that case, we're going to throw new error unauthorized like that. Otherwise, return the user ID inside of an object like that. And then we can use the handle auth like this in the middleware. So make sure you change the middleware to use the handle auth like that. Great. And now let's add a couple of more routes here. So remember to put a comma here at the end. And let's add course attachment, which is going to be an array of either a text or an image or a video or an audio or a PDF. So basically whatever could be useful for the students. Let's add the middleware, which is going to use the handle auth function inside. And let's add the on upload complete like this. Now let's go ahead and let's add the chapter video. So we're going to also upload videos using upload thing, which is going to be a type of video. Let's give it a max file count of 1, and let's give it the max file size. And as you can see, you have a lot of options here. You can go all the way to 1024 gigabytes. So I'm going to choose something else like 512 gigabytes like this. Let's add a middleware for this, handle out like that. And let's add on upload complete as well, an empty function like this. And remember to put a comma right here. Perfect. So now we have our core.ts. So let's take a look at what is the next step in the upload thing. So what we have to do is to create an actual API route using our file router. So as you can see, we have to create uploading/route.ts and we have to paste this inside. So let's copy this inside and let's go inside of upload thing and create a